Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. It's just Marco here once again, and I am here today to review a movie that I wasn't really planning on reviewing, but honestly, I don't know if I'll watch this movie for quite a while. I don't think I've ever talked about it in the past, even though Safi and I did review My Bodyguard back in like 2018, which I still remember the day that I watched that movie. It was a Saturday. I remember exactly what I ate. I remember like these YouTube videos that I was watching. Like I can vividly remember like that day. Because, I love that movie, My Bodyguard. It's one of my favorite kids' movies of all time. And, tonight I was kind of in the mood to watch this movie last night. But then I ended up watching Role Models for a second time. And to be fair, I did very much enjoy that. But I decided to watch Drillbit Taylor, which... It's funny because I am going to be watching Midnight in Paris as my next Woody Allen movie. Spoiler alert. And so it's great to watch some Owen Wilson. He's not just a funny guy, but he seems like such a chill guy. And so the characters that he plays, he's always in like movies pretty much where, they're like, chill out movies. They're like comfort movies. Meet the Parents, Drillbit Taylor. Okay, Drillbit Taylor, not as much. Okay, let's get started talking about this masterful movie. Okay, I mean, for starters, I don't know, what to feel about this movie. I know that sounds weird because I just called it masterful, but I don't know what to say. It's a movie that I watched it as a kid, and I really didn't like it. I bought it at Kroger, because they used to have movies at Kroger all the time. They'd have the stands right in the openings. They'd have board games there, and I would buy DVDs all the time because I was trying to, build up a collection for the apocalypse or for road trips too. And I really didn't like this movie. I thought it was silly. It was stupid. It kind of had some weird, sappy sub-stories in it. I did not like it. And then I kind of grew into liking it as I got kind of older, which is kind of weird because it's one of those movies that it feels like adults would watch it and be like, ooh, but kids would really like it, supposedly. But no, for me, as I got older, I was like, oh yeah, actually, that's pretty good. There was this one time that I remember that, Safi and I, we were doing laundry. And all of a sudden on TV, usually it was always Wheel of Fortune, Wheel of Fortune, Wheel of Fortune, not Real of Fortune. And nowadays it's some sort of a stupid day show with that guy from Kangaroo Jack and shit. And it's terrible. But there was this one day where they had Drillbit Taylor on television. And, doing laundry used to be the most boring thing ever. Safi and I would get, some snacks and we would get some sodas and just sit there and just be bored out of our minds. But the fact that we got to watch Drillbit Taylor made it kind of fun. And it's this small little TV, too. It was this small little TV, and it's still there. It's still the same TV, I think. And it's up in the corner, above this, above the ATM machine. And so, it was a unique experience to watch a movie. I mean, they've never played movies at the laundromat before, so it was really strange that one day they had that movie play. And again, I grew into liking the movie, and now I kind of have mixed feelings about it, because on one hand, this is a movie that is definitely a failure. I mean, it was supposed to be like a modern version of My Bodyguard, but it was supposed to be more, I guess, raunchy and silly and crude and kind of like subversive. Like, it tried to subvert a lot of the things that happened in My Bodyguard and tried to do like different things and have little twists. But I think that a big issue with this movie was just the writing, because there were two big problems with the movie. Number one, and I know you guys, usually I say what the movie's about. If you don't know what Drillbit Taylor is about, you're probably not going to care about this review anyway. Or maybe you will, I don't know. It's all about these two kids that are getting bullied in school. Well, three kids. And so they hire a bodyguard to defend them. And the bodyguard is a homeless guy who is conning them into hiring him. And he says he's a veteran, he's a, fighting expert and all this crap. And he really just wants to get their money. And so, but okay, the first big problem with this movie is that it's very meta, and it doesn't take itself seriously enough. There are a lot of moments in the movie where they try to play things off really seriously, and to be honest, it comes off as cringeworthy. It comes off like, really? Like, it just doesn't come off very well. And then there's other moments where, for instance, they have a fight at the end of the movie. That's not really a spoiler. I mean, that's how My Bodyguard ends too. But they have a fight, and they have all these strange jokes throughout the fight. And it really just feels like, is this really the time for jokes? Just like with like MCU movies, like, is it really the time to joke around, to make like a joke like this, a joke like that? And it just, it saps and sucks out all of the seriousness that you had in those moments and those scenes. And so that was a big issue with this movie. It was like, every time they kind of acted like they were going to take things seriously, all of a sudden you had like a comedic montage, and you had these silly childish moments, and just, it was very, very, very jarring and off-putting. And I would say like the first half of this movie is really, really off-putting, because you got Bargain Bin Jonah Hill and this kid who, honestly, props to him, because he lost all the weight just like Jonah Hill, and now he just looks like a guy. But like, he was the Bargain Bin Jonah Hill, and he's very annoying. And then he has this friend who's like a skinny nerd guy who was also in Role Models for a very small period of time in that movie, but he is really, really nerdy and just really, really unlikable and annoying as hell. And that's the thing, like, if you watch Role Models and this movie back to back, you're gonna see like a clear quality difference, because like, they have a similar kind of nerd character in Role Models, played by McLovin, Christopher Mintz-Plasse, and his character is so much better, and he has so much more humanity to him, and he doesn't just feel like a cartoon character. And this character, though, he feels like a cartoon. And it's sad, because the actors in this movie are actually really good. Even the kids, pretty much, they're really good. Like, there was this one moment where the main nerdy kid, he's having like a one-on-one moment with Drillbit Taylor, played by Owen Wilson. And it's a really good, like, serious, kind of, like, just calm, like, moment. And it felt like I wanted more of that and less of, like, oh, look, isn't this hilarious? They made the kids pee on each other. There's a lot of there's a lot of strange things that they do in this movie, the bullies. The bullies are, let's just talk about the bullies. Number one, and I know I'm doing a lot of, like, number one, number two. It just kind of helps me organize because I don't have any notes when I do these reviews. I just do it all off the top of my head, and I go crazy sometimes. But the first bully, he looks like a 30-year-old man. He's he looks like the guy from Saw, Adam. He looks kind of like him. In fact, I thought he was him as a kid. And he is like, he's insane. He's crazy, he's scary, but at the same time, he's kind of goofy. But I will give him credit because he was one of the few characters in the movie who never really was fully, like, silly. He was one of the only characters who pretty much stayed consistently serious through the whole movie. And he was kind of intimidating, and it would give me a stomachache when he came on screen when I was a kid watching this movie. But then on the other hand, you have Josh Peck, I think, of Drake and Josh, and he is just nothing. And he is so weak. But both of them, it's weird because they look like they're in college, and they're picking on these, like, little 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds, and it's really, really, really jarring. But there's a lot of, like, things in this movie that it's funny because earlier I did that video about why can't female characters be sexy in movies anymore. This movie, it was another great, like, thing to watch to see, this is the difference between then and now. Because there are so many things in this movie that it feels like there would be, like, riots over every single little thing in this movie. Like, for instance, the bullies at one point, they go in the boys' bathroom and they pick up the boys while they're peeing and make them pee on each other. I mean, if they did that in real life, they would get expelled, because it's almost like, is tantamount like an appropriate word here? I just kind of thought of that word, and I thought I should use it. It's almost like tantamount to sexual assault because, like, you just think about, like, they go in the boys' bathroom while these boys are going wee-wee, and they pick them up and make them wee-wee on each other, and, like, that's really bad, and that's really insane. But I love it, and that's one of the things that I loved about this movie was, like, the old school feel, and it just shows, too, that, like, movies nowadays could have that old school feel if they really wanted to. There was another moment in the movie that I know wouldn't fly today, and before the final fight, Jonah Hill, Bargain Bin Jonah Hill, he just walks up to this girl at a party and he kisses her. And then she hits him. But, like, it's the same thing. Like, nowadays people would complain about that and they would say, did he ask her for her consent before he kissed her? Because they did that whole thing. And I know that for a fact because they had the exact same type of thing in Halloween 2018 where I think it was the same kind of thing that happened where, like, a Jonah Hill type, I think he kissed Allison, the grandson, and then she was like, did you ask for my consent for a kiss? Like, I think they actually did that. So, it just goes to show, again, like, this is why movies are bad nowadays and movies used to be so much better because This movie, Drillbit Taylor, even though there are quite a few things about it that I don't like, it's so much better than anything that we have nowadays. Like, it's one of those things where, like, you look back and you're like, wow, we really had it good and we didn't know it at all. Because, like, if I knew the state of society that we would be in now, I would go back and just go see Drillbit Taylor in theaters over and over and over again just to support it and to see if maybe I could, cause like a butterfly effect to happen or something, or like a good butterfly effect, because I mean, wasn't the butterfly effect bad? I haven't seen the movie, but you know what I mean, guys. But like another issue that I have with this movie, though. What was I gonna say? It literally just escaped me. Like, I was so confident too. I was like, another thing about this movie is that shit. God, this is terrible. It's just because like I don't want to have to think, so that then there's dead air. Like, and see, I don't edit these videos either, which is also probably pretty bad. But who cares? But yeah, as I said before, I guess I should talk about something I liked, is that all the actors pretty much are okay, never mind. Okay, I remembered. There's quite a few characters in this movie that aren't really fully characters, they're just caricatures. And for instance, I really didn't like the parents and I remember the true thing I was thinking about. But I did not like the parents of either kid. And Role Models, again, Role Models is a good movie, a great movie. And it came out the same year as Drillbit Taylor. But in Role Models, they had these parents that were really, really mean to their nerdy son. And it felt realistic, it very much felt like, parents like this exist. They're unsupportive. And, they treat their son like just like how bullies treat a nerd in high school or something. It's just really pretty poor. But then at the end of the movie, they end up like, learning a lesson, and they end up like being better parents, and they feel more real, and they feel a lot more like parents. But there's this really terrible reoccurring plot throughout the movie. The nerdy kid, he has this stepfather who is... I think he's the stepfather? I can't remember. He might just be their regular father. But he's like a former bully, like a proud bully. And there's some commentary there, too, that they tried to do where, the dad is like, well, I bet if you asked... my victims nowadays about my bullying them, that they would say thank you to me. And I thought that was kind of interesting, but it could have been touched upon better, I think. That's one of the plots that I really, really feel like was a failure, was the parents in this movie were terrible. They were awful. They just were not real. They did not feel real, because... I'll tell you something, like, I don't care if it's nowadays or if it's back then. If you had the stuff that happened to these kids happen in real life, both of those bullies would be expelled so fast, it's not even funny. Even in, like, a lesser school, I think, like, there would be consequences for these bullies. Because that's another thing that happens in the movie, is that Drillbit Taylor ends up disguising himself as a teacher. He's like a substitute teacher, and he ends up like teaching every single class in the school, which was pretty hilarious. I really liked that. I will say too, before I get back to my point, is that this movie very much improves in the second half. I think in the second half, that's when they take things a little bit more seriously. And so that's kind of when it gets a little bit better, and it has like moments that you feel like, wow, this is pretty good. But as I was saying, Drillbit, he's the substitute teacher at the school in all these different classes. And to be honest, he really exposes that all that would have to happen in this school is for teachers to do their jobs. Okay, like that's literally all that would have to happen to stop this bullying that goes on in this movie, because there's like a big period of time where these bullies, they can't touch the main three kids, and because Drillbit it constantly gets in between them. He gets them before they're going to do something to the kids. And so it's like, it really just kind of exposed that, like, this was just a really shitty school, shitty teachers, shitty principal, and if they all just did their jobs, then these kids would be fine. So I thought that really was a big lacking point in the movie, was they never talk about that. They never bring that up. Like they have all this like big to-do about him being like a criminal and being a homeless man, and he infiltrated the school, but they never talk about how if the teachers just did their jobs, that the kids wouldn't have to worry about being assaulted on a daily basis. And in particular, one character that I really didn't like in the movie was Drillbit Taylor's love interest. She's a teacher, and she is more concerned with getting it on with Drillbit Taylor in the teacher conference, or in the teacher's lounge, than going to teach her class. Her character is a biatch. And again, she is another character who could be helping these kids fend off against these bullies. And she never, ever does anything to help them, ever. There's never even any interaction with them either. It never, except for the beginning of the movie. The bullies, they make fun of the kids, and they make them wear the same shirt because they wore the same shirt to school. And so that, they actually force them to be inside the same shirt. And they go into the classroom with this blonde biatch, and she starts laughing at them. So, yeah, like, what a terrible love interest. And what a terrible school. I mean, it's not the bullies, it's the teachers. They allow this type of shit to go on. I guess you could say it's good commentary for real life, because that happens. And usually what happens is if someone defends themselves against the bully, then they're the ones who get in trouble. So let's see, what other things could I talk about? I guess I could talk about Owen Wilson as Drillbit Taylor. I thought that he was perfect for the role, and I really liked how one of the subversions of the My Bodyguard that I really liked was that the character in My Bodyguard, he was a really sympathetic character. The bodyguard guy, played by Matt Dillon, he actually had a cameo in this movie. I thought that was great. I loved that part. But in the original movie, he's a really badass, strong character. You would not want to fuck with him. Everyone kind of treats him like he's dangerous, like he's just the biggest badass in school, and he is just terrifying. But then you see he has a terribly tragic backstory. He had a terrible tragedy happen to him and his brother when they were a little bit younger, and so he's such a great character. But he's really like, he's up there. He's not like a little wimp. Well, Owen Wilson's character, he's just a homeless guy because he didn't want to be in the army, so he deserted the army, and he doesn't want to face responsibility for his actions. And so he doesn't even really have a tragedy, and he's a huge wimp. And he's like, I'm a pacifist. And so his character is such a great subversion of that original movie character. And I liked that. I liked all the little changes that they tried to do with that, with Owen Wilson's character. And I felt like he was pretty good in this movie. Like for all the shit that people give this movie, you really can't say that he did a bad job, because he pretty much did what he always does. But he did a great job. He held it in this movie. So let's see, what else should I say? I would say one of the things that I loved about the movie, another thing that I loved, is that for the final fight, the kids who were getting picked on, they chose to wear the same shirts that they wore on the first day of school, basically like to just say fuck you to these bullies. Because they got made fun of for wearing the same shirts. Like, who cares? Like, honestly, who cares? But I love that they wore those shirts, like, as a symbol of, like, defiance. I thought that was really cool. And I really ended up enjoying this movie. And I'm just surprised by how much I enjoyed it, because the first half is so off-putting. It has such a silly, stupid vibe. But then in the second half, it really feels like that's when they tried to get things together. And they did end up tying everything together for the most part. But there were still some dangling threads, like I mentioned. Now, one of the things that I really didn't like, one of the characters, is Danny McBride. He plays just the most gross, scummy homeless guy ever, and he has this horrible haircut. It's probably a wig, and he just wants to steal from these kids and rob their house, and he is just ugh. I mean, whenever he's on screen in this movie, it's almost even hard to look at him. And I'm not saying that because, as in, like, homeless people are hard to look at. I'm saying his character, the character that he plays in this movie, is hard to look at, because he's just so gross. He's such a scuzzball, and I really despised his character, and I did not like his character. And the whole story with the character, too. I mean, I guess you could say that, like, for this movie, like, depicting homeless people, like, they really did kind of a mixed bag of a job. Because, the whole movie, you see these homeless guys are pretty much the same 5 guys the whole movie. And pretty much the whole movie, none of them really have any depth besides they want money. Drillbit's on a date with his girlfriend, and so they all purposefully ask him for money to force him to give them money, because they know that he will. There's one part where they all go in the teacher's lounge, and they want to pretend to be teachers to get money as substitute teachers, which, by the way, terrible school. I mean, you just walk into that school and you just get paid as a substitute. Like, it's just stupid. But they never really give those characters, like, any depth at all. And so I really wish that they'd have done that, because, again, there were some characters in this movie that were just caricatures, and they were really not great. They were just very bland, and kind of like, yeah, this is definitely a stereotype or a caricature. And, just give them a little bit. Just give them a little bit, pun intended, like Drillbit, little bit. Okay, I ran that joke into the ground, but, like, give them a little tiny bit of character. A little tiny bit. Just a little bit. It won't hurt anything. You can just add one line. Like, you think I always wanted to be homeless? There, it's one line. That gives them a character. I lost my job as a teacher at Harvard. That was a bad line. But, it's just one little line, though. and it gives a character a little bit of character. And they couldn't even do that. So, but yeah, I actually ended up really enjoying this movie, and, you know, I would say that the lesson is kind of weird too. That's something I will say, is that in the original My Bodyguard, the lesson is pretty much that you need to stand up for yourself. You know, the main kid, Peaches, that's what they call him in the movie. And his character, you know, the whole movie, he's using Matt Dillon to stand up for him. But then the bully, he gets a bodyguard himself. And then the bodyguard is just an adult, a criminal, and he beats the shit out of the bodyguard. So then the main kid, you know, he's screwed. And, you know, the bully's always with that guy now. So what he has to end up doing at the end of the movie is he has to stand up for himself and fight the bully all by himself. And what he ends up doing is he breaks the bully's nose and he beats him in a fight. And it's a really heartwarming and just classic movie moment. He broke my nose. He broke my nose. You know, like, it's such a great moment. And it's such a powerful moment because, you know, I bet a lot of kids wish that they could do what he did in that movie. And, well, in this movie, you know, the kids did think that they were going to have to do it themselves and fight the main bully themselves. But what ends up happening is that Drillbit Taylor comes to the rescue and he beats the bully for them. Because, to be fair, the bully is 18 in the movie. So he is an adult, you know? I mean, so, honestly, like, Drillbit was perfectly in the right to beat the shit out of that one bully. At the same time, though, again, what kind of a message does it send? That, like, they did have some good blows in the fight against the bully. I mean, it was kind of surprising because the whole movie, they treated that guy like he was like Michael Myers or something, you know, like he would just pop up and terrorize these kids. But then at the end, like, both the fatty and the nerd, they did actually score some good hits. So, you know, I wish that final fight was a little bit better. I wish that instead of... Here's what I would have done. Drillbit Taylor shows up. He tries one last time to be like, you know, like, okay, stop the fighting now. You know, like, do the pacifist thing. And then the bully beats him. And he thinks, like, okay, like, he finds out maybe that the bully is 18 and he can beat him up, which that's what happens in the movie, and then he ends up beating up the bully. But here's what I would have him do instead. He thinks about fighting the bully for a second, but then he's like, no, these kids have got to do it themselves. So he goes to the sidelines, and he says, I'll tell you what to do. You just got to do what I say. You know, you got to follow my instructions, but you also have to fight this battle on your own. You can't have me come in and save the day. You've gotten this far. You can go the rest of the way yourselves. So that's what I would have done, because I think that would have been so much more satisfying, and it would have felt a lot more like real. And then maybe you could have the part where he comes out with the samurai sword, and that's when Drillbit could come in. Because, you know, I mean, obviously, that was pretty crazy, too. But, yeah. So, anyways, I would actually highly recommend this movie. It is pretty cringy at points, I will say. Like, there were some moments where I was like, ugh. And not because I thought something was offensive, but because a lot of the kids in this movie, all they did was just scream the whole movie, like, ah, ah, They just did that the whole movie, and it got so annoying. And then there were some cringy parts with, like, the characters who were really one-dimensional. I really didn't like that. And then I think the thing that surprised me most was that at the end of the movie, remember the biatch, the love interest? She ends up with Drillbit Taylor. Because she's like, I've had this track record, and this is a classic, like, modern woman line. I've had this track record of dating really loser guys. I just can't escape it. And so then Drillbit, he tells her the truth, that he's a homeless man, blah, blah, blah. But then what happens, though, is that when he goes to jail, she regains her passion for him because he went to jail. So he's like a hardened, like criminal type of guy or something. And so she gets back together with him because he went to jail. I mean, just really, really weird, guys. Really weird. That's not a good relationship, Like, I didn't like that. I thought that was really stupid, But other than that, like, again, I really like this movie. I would watch it again, but at the same time, there are a lot of things about it that I think are pretty bad, too. So it's kind of a mixed bag. It's something that, again, I just have mixed feelings about, like, but I want to kind of be positive about it because, again, they would never make this movie nowadays. They could make it, and they should make a movie like this nowadays, but they wouldn't. How about that? How about I start saying that? So in terms of food, I would give this movie a bag of jelly beans. Jelly beans, I used to really like them as a kid. In fact, one of my all-time favorite kids' books is called The Jelly Bean Principle. And it's a really, really, really good book. And the illustrations are really inspiring and colorful. And I love that book. I loved jelly beans. But as an adult, for some reason, I just can't get into jelly beans the way that I got into them as a kid. There was this one time in 2020 where a friend asked me to do a video game commentary while I played Bean Boozled. So every time I didn't like something in the game, I had to eat a jelly bean. And I swear to God that I got cavities up the ass from doing that video game playthrough, that I only did like a couple of playthroughs of that game, and I ended up giving up because no one was watching the playthroughs. And but at the same time, like, there are a lot of jelly bean flavors that I like, and when you get a jelly bean bag, it is kind of fun to kind of taste the different flavors. Like, what I like to do now, I've done it the past couple of days, I'll be like, okay, like, how's my evening gonna be? And I'll shake up the bag, and then I empty out like 5 or 6 jelly beans in my hand. And I taste each one, and I determine this is what my evening's gonna be like. Maybe it's a bad thing, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's like a fun thing to do. It's like a jelly bean fortune telling, like it's fun, and it's fun to get the different flavors, but there are some really bad flavors, and again, I just can't get into jelly beans the way that I did as a kid. They're okay. I don't like how small they are. I like the Easter jelly beans that are really like big and thick, and I like the coconut one, the orange one, and the pink one. Those are my favorite flavors of the Easter jelly beans. So anyways, please like this video and comment. What do you think about Drillbit Taylor? Do you remember this movie? I'd love to actually do a commentary of this movie sometime. I think that, you know, it's a movie that's loaded with fun stuff to talk about, and it really is another good time capsule of a time where they used to make real movies. And there wasn't this weird self-censorship thing going on, and you could just go to the movies and have fun, live off in fantasy land, not have to worry about feminism and the stupid government and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And it's too bad that nowadays they want to, you know, ruin everything. And then please subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see more honest movie reviews. Goodbye, everybody. See you soon.